Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
I'm with Hamid Ansari, former Vice President of India, across two governments in the UPA from 2007 to 12, and then again for a second term from 12 to 17, a former diplomat, represented India in several countries abroad, and who's now written this book called By Many a Happy Accident. Several very, very interesting anecdotes, stories in this book. But the one that I first want to ask you about is you mentioned that when you were Vice President and Prime Minister Narendra Modi walked into your office on an unscheduled visit and talked about passing the bills and why you weren't allowing bills being passed in the din of the House. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Nothing. I mean, there are meetings between the Prime Minister of the day and the chairperson of Rajya Sabha on the day, but there is a certain ritual to it. Anyway, that meeting took place without the ritual. Again, not unprecedented, but
Right.
And he did ask me as to why the bills were not being passed in the din, and I referred him to a decision of mine earlier during the UPA period that bills will either be done by general consensus, which is rare but not unprecedented.
Right.
Otherwise, they'll be debated and passed. Debating means you have a debate, and then if somebody wants a vote, you say I want a vote, even if you are a one person in a house of 240.
Right.
Okay? And very often my friends from the left would stand up and say, we want a vote, and I would privately ask them why, you know the numbers. Said, no, it's a matter of principle.
Okay.
So that takes a little time. Okay? That's the standard procedure.
It takes time to call for a vote to just, first
clear the lobbies and things like that.
That's right.
About half an hour, 40 minutes or lost that way. That's all.
So was he referring to any particular bill?
No. It was a general query. I gave him the general answer.
So what was the query? What did he say? What did the Prime Minister say?
He asked why bills are not being passed, and I said because everybody had agreed in UPA period, and it was actually welcomed by the then opposition. It was my suggestion and my decision, because the chair is the decider, which was accepted by everybody. Some reluctantly, some less reluctantly, but it was accepted.
And you call it the Salisbury Doctrine.
No, I don't call it Salisbury Doctrine. Salisbury Doctrine was suggested by an honourable member, which was something that happened in the House of Commons way back, I think 1946 or so. That the party that wins the House of Commons has the moral authority to prevail over anything that may be said in the upper house. And my point was, and this was accepted by everybody, that unlike the British upper house, the House of Lords, the Indian upper house is an elected house. Elected by a different process, but nevertheless elected, and carrying the same powers under the Constitution as the other house. And in fact, if you read the Constitution of India carefully, you will find that wherever the two houses are named, the Rajya Sabha is named before the Lok Sabha. Now, why was it done this way? I don't know.
Okay.
That's all. So I said it doesn't apply here.
At the time, of course, when the Modi government came to power in 2014, the NDA did not have a majority in the House. So, at the time, did you feel that there was this, that there was a point of view that because of the Salisbury Doctrine, that the majority that the government had in the Lok Sabha, that should hold in the Rajya Sabha too?
Well, it was a point of view accepted by someone who was leader of opposition before the election and who became leader of the House after the election.
You're talking about Arun Jaitley.
Yes, I'm talking about Arun Jaitley.
Okay.
He's an erudite man and he made this suggestion. But then when it was discussed and pointed out that the nature of the two upper houses, the British and the Indian, are different, he accepted it.
Did the PM express any unhappiness with you?
However, you were not going to face read people. It was a quiet conversation in private. That's all.
A cordial conversation. A cordial conversation.
Always cordial. I think my personal relations with him have been extremely cordial.
Right.
As Chief Minister, as Prime Minister.
So you put it to rest. I mean, you weren't surprised. You weren't startled.
A query was raised, a query was answered. That's all.
Okay. But you write in your book, and I'm going to quote, where you say that this government, which came into power in 2014 and then again in 2019, that the success of this government, one big element of its success is that populism has proved itself. And then you go on to say that it was assisted by authoritarianism, nationalism, and majoritarianism.
I spelled this out in a memorial lecture,
Yes.
which I had given sometimes in 2018, I think.
Are you referring to the law school, the National Law School lecture in Bangalore?
No, this particular one was the Fakhruddin Ali Ahmad Memorial Lecture in Delhi.
Okay. So why do you, these are strong words, sir, for a
But
former...
these are standard words in the vocabulary of contemporary academia. I'm not inventing them. It's not, I'm taking no credit for it. I'll give you innumerable books written by Indian authors and by foreign authors where these terms have been used.
So why did you feel that way? Why do you feel this way?
It's not a question of my feeling. I'm expressing a view. That's all. As a citizen, I'm entitled to express a view.
Right. So I'm just wondering...
These are not derogatory terms. These are descriptive terms.
Right. So what is it that you believe has made India to be, and that there is sort of increasing authoritarianism or majoritarianism in our country?
I don't have to comment on it. It is visible. You are a citizen, I am a citizen, she is a citizen. We all see it.
But do you feel that, and I'm going to quote again, where you say that it's the creation of the image of a nation state whose security and prosperity depends on a strong center under the firm command of a single supreme leader.
That's the articulation that one hears day in and day out.
You're referring to the Prime Minister.
I'm not commenting on individuals, and in the book I have not commented on any single individual. That is not important for me.
So is it
I express a well argued point of view, not just by me. I have quoted this also. You read my footnotes.
Is this the atmosphere that you feel has developed in our country these last several years?
Well, it's obvious. Nobody will deny it. This side will not deny it, that side will not deny it.
So I have another question on the on parliamentary obstructionism, which is a tactic that was employed by the NDA when the UPA was in power, and you also mentioned this in your book.
Yes, because again, an honorable member who's no longer in this world, she said that obstruction is part of parliamentary tactics.
Sushma Swaraj.
God bless her soul.
And what was the consensus in the House?
No, there'll always be a lack of consensus on such matters because they are, in the nature of things, suggested in self-interest.
But that obviously struck you because you mentioned it.
Of course, because it shows you the nature of politics that is pursued in Indian democracy. So it is a peculiarity of the way India has taken to parliamentary politics.
But you were obviously struck by it, you were surprised by it.
Well, I mean, it was a suggestion which was obvious. You don't have to be very wise to understand why it was so.
But in the 10 years that you were vice president, give us a flavor of how things changed.
Nothing. Left to right, right to left, that's all. As far as chair was concerned, it is just that. The chair remained the referee earlier and later, that's all. And the chair's relations, formal and informal relations with the players remained the same. You see, understand it in terms of hockey or cricket. The referee in hockey is a close observer of the game.
Right.
Isn't it? Because he's there, right there, with a kind of magnifying glass. Huh? But he also has a rule book in his pocket and a yellow card and a red card. If the occasion arises, he uses the yellow card or the red card. But if the occasion does not arise, he doesn't use it. That's it.
And in cricket, what's the...
Cricket, again, the umpire's job is to do it played by the rules. And therefore, the umpire must know the rules very well. And I have quoted a cricketing personality there to say that he must read the rules again and again and again.
But Parliament was hardly cricket when you were there.
It is another form of cricket.
How do you say that?
Because your two sides were playing.
But you have backroom deals, you have cross platform or across the aisle differences, which then again get resolved perhaps because people agree to a compromise. Sometimes they don't.
That's all right. That's a part of any game, whether it is political game, social game, or political game. There's nothing new about it. This is game of life, that's all.
But do you feel that there was an effort to invisibilize you?
I was going to be invisible anyway. I mean, every retired person is invisible. I was not some kind of on a pedestal that cannot be wished away. I was just another functionary of the state. Yes, a high functionary of the state. But that's all.
So let me ask you about your years as a diplomat. And when you were vice president, again, there was the Indo-US nuclear deal that was signed. Again, highly contested. We were in the Rajya Sabha, of course, but in the Lok Sabha, we saw how in the din, Prime Minister wasn't allowed to read his speech. Do you feel as a former diplomat and also as a former vice president that things have become much more divisive, even in foreign policy, which was supposed to be sort of this overarching agreement between politicians?
No. If you read the history of Indian foreign policy in terms of Parliament, you'll find that those differences were always there. After all, what happened in 1960? When Chu En Lai came with a package of proposals.
Right.
Jawaharlal Nehru, perhaps, I don't know, felt that some members of his own government needed to hear that directly from the messenger. So he suggested a meeting with Mr. Morarji Desai and with Mr. Govindwala Pant. And Chu En Lai said, I'll go and meet both of them.
Right.
Now all this is available on record now. So there's no great secret about it. He met both of them and both of them told him in rather strong terms what is not possible. So he went back, ostensibly very disappointed. And of course, we know what happened after that.
But now that you have the Chinese aggressing into India's territory again, do you think that there is such a big divide, political divide between the Congress party and the ruling party?
Look, political parties change their views according to their perception of the situation at the moment. No political party will tell you what its position will be next year.
So let me ask you about the Iran vote. Do you feel that, at the time when India supported...
I said so. I wrote an article in some newspaper, I think it was Asian Age,
Yeah.
that we could have avoided it. There are multiple ways of avoiding a firm position. Every diplomat knows that. Everybody who's worked in UN knows it. Sometimes you vote with your feet, which means that the critical moment you go to the washroom.
Right.
Okay. Or you absent yourself somehow or the other. Sometimes you formally abstain. So there were multiple ways. Now, what I had to say on that occasion was, in my perception, well documented. But there were other forces at work. It was the judgment of the government of the day, which was the UPA government,
Right.
to go on a certain course. I didn't agree. I said so.
So you feel that politics and foreign policy, which, we've grown up believing that both sides usually agree on foreign policy.
No.
But-
no. Countries, a political divide in perceptions is not just a theoretical divide. It is also of what benefit accrues to me. Politics is a game of seeking benefits.
And
It's
foreign...
all not a theoretical exercise.
So if politics is a game of seeking benefits, how would you describe what foreign policy is?
The same thing. I try to get the best for my country.
And Afghanistan, my last couple of questions. Afghanistan is back on the agenda.
It never was off the agenda. You see? It never was off the agenda. When the Soviets invaded Afghanistan in December
1979.
1979, our Prime Minister was the late Mr. Charan Singh in that interim period.
Right.
When the Soviet ambassador wanted to call on him, he is reported to have said, and this is gossip, told the foreign secretary of the day, मुझे इन विदेशियों से बचाओ.
Okay.
India took a certain position because of our relationship with the Soviets. And we made a statement in the UN in January, which was tilted towards the Soviet action. And its reception was not good. Not good in our own circle of non-aligned friends.
Right.
By then, Mrs. Gandhi had come back to power, and her antenna was very sharp. So she started distancing herself. And I've written about the incident of the visit of Mr. Gromyko.
Yeah.
By then I was chief of protocol. So I conducted him up the steps of South Block. And he said something about South Block is dimly lit. Perhaps more dimly lit than today. And as we were going up the steps, Gromyko said to me, because I was conducting him, he said, very dim, very British.
So I have to ask you one last question about your speech in 2015 at the All India Muslim Bajisse Mushawarat,
Yeah.
where you said that there is a feeling of unease and a sense of insecurity
Yes.
in Indian Muslims.
Yes.
You stand by that.
I stand by that very much so.
In what way?
In what way? Public perception. I met a vast cross section of people in my different capacities, and it was clearly conveyed to me. And please read the speech, what I said in the speech. I said there are things that the state can do, and there are things that the community can do. They are not sequential, they go together. There is a perception, if anything, it has got heightened. The CAA heightened it. Why do you think the same downtrodden Muslim women, victims of what some people called triple talaq, could go and sit for several weeks, months in Dharna, in Shaheen Bagh? Why did it happen? Could anybody associate it? So obviously there is a feeling of unease.
But they were removed from Shaheen Bagh then because
Well, whatever happened, that's all history now.
Yeah.
Books have been written about it.
not that long ago actually, but do you feel that this sense of insecurity has only been heightened?
Because of what is happening. I mean, chaps are being lynched publicly. What do you expect them to do? Why are you allowing those things to happen? You are the state. The state is supposed to be neutral and almighty.
The government says these are random incidents and that
What do you
the
mean
law,
random? Everything is a random incident.
and that the law is taking its course.
No, it's not taking its course. You see, if cases don't get heard, and we have excellent examples right here in Delhi of cases not being heard. Why? The case of a journalist is heard overnight, and a major constitutional matter is not heard for a year or more. What conclusion do you draw from it?
You're referring to Article 370 and the cases
Yes, of
about
course.
that. So what's the conclusion that you can draw?
You draw your conclusion. I'm sure in your writings you have drawn your conclusions.
So
Much has been written about it.
So do you discuss this with people, that the fact that cases about Article 370 which have been pending in the Supreme Court have
Look,
not been
everybody
heard?
is discussing it. I'm not the only one. Any gathering of people will discuss it.
These discussions are taking place beneath the radar. Sort of
No,
what
they
you-
are not. Come on. Read any newspaper.
But why do you think that these petitions that are pending in the Supreme Court are not being discussed?
I cannot comment on the Supreme Court.
Perhaps the Supreme Court doesn't have the time.
Former judges of Supreme Court have said it.
Perhaps they don't have the time. They are
Maybe-
overwhelmed by
maybe
thousands
they
of
are.
cases.
But then how does an incident relating to an individual journalist find time for overnight hearing? You know it all.
So what is the direction that you feel? What is the sense of, you're obviously disturbed because that's a sense I get from reading some portions of your book.
Look, I have said it openly, publicly, earlier in writing and now in writing,
That
of what is going wrong with Indian democracy. That's all. There are whole sections of it, and innumerable, at least a dozen or more speeches in that section on public speaking. Why have I included it? Because I expressed my views there. I expressed my views there as Vice President of India. Nobody objected to it then.
But surely nobody objects to it anytime you say that.
There you are. So what I said in the National Law School was a fact of life.
The fact that Indian nationalism is increasingly illiberal.
Is increasingly,
Illiberal.
I think the best proof is in action. Not in profession, but in action. There are clear definitions of what is liberal and what is not liberal. You read Professor Nirja Gopal Jayal's book.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody will question her caliber. Okay? You read foreign academics of eminence. You read Professor Jaffarlow. These are not people who can be dismissed lightly. You read The Economist. You read the queries raised by different bodies of American Congress.
So where were you during the emergency? Where were you posted?
Emergency. Yes, I was ambassador I was in Brussels. Yes. I mean,
So the 2 years of the emergency you were abroad, you were not in India.
no, not the first part.
So do you feel that the Republic is in danger today?
No republic has changed course, that's all. I don't know about danger and not danger. I have no. My perception is as good as yours. But we have changed course. I'm not the only one who's saying that. Everybody is saying that.
But change course from the goals of the Republic that we had in 1950? Or change course from the ideals?
We deviated during the emergency. And the only credit you can give to Mrs. Indira Gandhi is that she understood that fast enough to take the step that she did. You know?
And
But-
today?
I don't know. We'll see. You see it as much as I do.
So speaking of the Republic, we've just celebrated Republic Day a few days ago.
That's an annual ritual. We do that every year. So
But I'm asking you about the farmers' agitation when hundreds of farmers climbed the ramparts of the Red Fort and hoisted.
well, that is still a matter of debate as to who climbed and why.
But it was a peaceful agitation.
It was a peaceful agitation,
that became
and those
unruly
who
and
spoke
violent.
for the agitation still say so. The same thing. How it went off the track, I don't know.
And never before seen. I mean, we have never seen the Republic besmirched in a sense, isn't it?
Yes, but then there are a lot of other questions which can be asked, will be asked. How did they get to Red Fort? How did they enter the Red Fort? How did they climb the ramparts, etc., etc., etc.?
Right, on this note,
We
Mr.
end.
Ansari, thank you so much for your time.